The less space equals more traffic theory, known as level of service, was once the established rule of traffic engineering, but it has long been discredited. To show how traffic really works, we need to look at a different supply and demand concept, called induced demand, which simply means the more you increase the supply of something, in this instance roads, the more people use it. This is because when you expand a road, traveling by car becomes quicker and easier in the short term. And this makes traveling by car more attractive, and so more people are more likely to use their cars than usual. More car trips equals more cars on the route, and all that extra space quickly disappears. Now there is a limit to all of this. If you make a 10-lane motorway into 100 lanes, you could travel without seeing another car for miles. But we're not talking about a mathematical principle, we're talking about human behavior, which is often influenced by a whole host of different factors. Something which the level of service argument cannot account for. So, what impact does the introduction of new bike lanes have? Well, the induced demand effect also works in reverse, which means when you reduce road capacity, by introducing new bike lanes for instance, again there is an immediate impact, but this time car travel becomes slower and more congested in the short term. This then discourages road use and as a result congestion will largely go back to similar levels as it was before and, in some cases, go down. It's called traffic evaporation. The crushed stones that line railroad tracks are collectively called track ballast. More specifically, the track ballast constitutes the track bed upon which sleepers or railroad ties are laid. As you may have seen, these stones are packed below, between and around the railroad ties. The thickness of the track ballast usually ranges between 25 to 30 centimeters, and varies depending on certain conditions pertaining to the geographical location of the railway track. Track ballast usually consists of crushed rocks or stone, but in some cases, less suitable alternatives, like burnt clay, are also used. However, it's important to understand that you can't just throw a bunch of rocks on a railroad and be done with it. As mentioned, the stones in the track ballast have a characteristic shape, size and texture. Their surface is not smooth and their edges are jagged, and for good reason. These rocks interlock with each other and therefore stay in place. If you replace them with circular or smooth rocks, they would slide over each other and compromise the strength of the track ballast. As you might imagine, this can have catastrophic results. Railway tracks are made of steel and other metallic parts that are prone to corrosion and rusting, as they are constantly exposed to the forces of nature, including extreme heat from the sun, rain, vegetation and general wear and tear. The primary reason behind the existence of track ballast is to protect the railway track. Today we have Paul Whitner, Head of Theater Studies here to tell us a bit about the Theater Studies program. Paul. What makes this course different?
Well, I think it's the environment we can offer students. We're a relatively small conservatoire and we offer superb courses in a number of subjects,
with an opportunity for performance.
We've built a reputation for producing both traditional and alternative performances.
I guess the course would appeal to potential students for the level of support that's available.
And I mean from the tutors as well as from the fellow students and alumni.
There's a real sense of community.
So, what are you looking for in prospective students?
I guess we're looking for people who are able to cope with the high demands that the course will put on them.
In that way, I think the program reflects the workplace we're preparing them for.
So, it's incredibly intense and we cover a huge range of projects, and they will be introduced to areas of performance design which they might never have considered before.
We need students with imagination and dedication, who are able to keep up when the going gets tough.
It can be demanding, but we have to remember that the college enjoys an excellent reputation for student retention, student satisfaction and student employment after graduation. Life in the UK 2012 provides a unique overview of well-being in the UK today. The report is the first snapshot of life in the UK to be delivered by the Measuring National Wellbeing Programme and will be updated and published annually. Well-being is discussed in terms of the economy, people and the environment. Information such as the unemployment rate or number of crimes against a person are presented alongside data on people's thoughts and feelings, for example, satisfaction with our jobs or leisure time and fear of crime. Together, a richer picture on how society is doing is provided. At least 5 people were killed and several others wounded when Sudanese security forces opened fire on demonstrators in Khartoum and elsewhere in the country Saturday. The Sudan Doctors Committee said 4 people died from gunshots and 1 suffocated from tear gas in Khartoum and Omdurman on Saturday. Several other protesters were wounded, including from gunshots. The rallies came 2 days after military coup leader General Abdel Fattah el-Burhan reappointed himself the head of the Sovereign Council, Sudan's interim governing body. Thursday's move angered the pro-democracy alliance and frustrated the United States and other countries that have urged the military to reverse its coup and to restore civilian rule. A massive tow truck worked Saturday to remove the remains of a burned-out oil tanker that exploded in a giant fireball overnight near the capital of Sierra Leone. Reuters' David Doyle has more. Deputy Health Minister Amara Jamai said the death toll currently stands at 99, with more than 100 people being treated in hospitals and clinics across the capital, Freetown. In a video from the scene shared online, the head of the National Disaster Management Agency, Rima Bure-Saizi, said, "We've got so many casualties, burnt corpses," adding, "It's a terrible, terrible accident." Freetown's mayor said the extent of the damage from Friday's explosion was not yet known, adding that police and her deputy were at the scene to assist disaster management officials. Knowledge of the inheritance of characteristics has been implicitly used since prehistoric times for improving crop plants and animals through selective breeding. However, the modern science of genetics, which seeks to understand the mechanisms of inheritance, only began with the work of Gregor Mendel in the mid-19th century. Although he did not know the physical basis for the heredity, Mendel observed that inheritance is fundamentally a discrete process where specific traits are inherited in an independent manner. These basic units of inheritance are now called genes. Although genetics plays a large role in determining the appearance and behavior of organisms, it is the interactions of genetics with the environment and organism experiences that determines the ultimate outcome. For example, while genes play a role in determining a person's height, the nutrition and health that person experiences in childhood also have a large effect. Genetics, a discipline of biology, is the science of heredity and variation in living organisms. The executive director, Dr. Magnus Agerstedt, explores several aspects of robots, such as the basics of the machines, myths and misconceptions, as well as the hopes for, and fears of, the advancement of robot technology. In the video, Dr. Agerstedt mentions that robots used to be about mechanical engineering, but now modern robots involve psychology, because these machines will be working along with humans and thus they need to understand people. The second video, which takes place in Augsburg, Germany, dives into the real meaning of robots and humans working together, as well as the way this interaction will benefit society. The third video, which comes out in mid-July, will focus on the all-robot staffed hotel in Nagasaki, Japan, where a Mahara investigates the way robots behave utilizing only artificial intelligence. Nature's instruments for survival can be a godsend until they begin to affect us in destructive ways. Someone's negative characteristics can cloud their favorable traits to such an extent that we cannot see the positive anymore. In our biased minds, this person has become purely evil. It's pretty difficult not to feel repulsed by someone who doesn't have any positive traits, let alone forgive them. So, we might want to look beyond the vast specter of negativity and see that the people we resent are also carrying good within them and that it's human to possess both evil and A listener in Poland recently sent us an email. Slavik Lobota writes, "There are many American universities and colleges that provide long-distance education to the world. The trouble is that each university says that it is the best. After an hour of searching and reading what they have in their offer, one gets a headache. You simply don't know whom to trust and what to choose." Slavik goes on to say, "I have been listening to VOA for years and I would trust you if you made an interesting program about American universities for foreigners. Is there a university that you could recommend?" After World War II, many Americans still believed that people of different races should not mix. In some parts of the country, blacks and whites lived in separate areas and went to separate schools. Blacks who tried to change the system risked being beaten or killed. Blacks were not permitted to play on professional baseball teams or in any other major league sport. No black man had played for a major league baseball team since 1884. In that year, American baseball organizations agreed to bar blacks. That began changing when Jackie Robinson played his first game for New York's Brooklyn Dodgers on April 15, 1947. Margaret Brown was a social and political activist in the formative years of the modern American West. Her biggest claim to fame was surviving the Titanic. This week on our program, we tell the story of the woman remembered as the unsinkable Molly Brown. Margaret Brown lived an interesting life, but not all the stories about her are true. For example, a Denver newspaper reporter named Jean Fowler wrote that she survived a tornado as a baby, refused to attend school, and chewed tobacco. Fowler wrote about Brown and others in his book Timberline, published after her death in 1932. Certain films are hard to be classified into one single genre. I cannot hand out my dissertation this week. Accountancy students need to submit their dissertations this week.